UK Crime Book Club. I am here with the lovely MW Craven. Don't tell him how good he is. We don't want his head to get big. And we're going to be talking about Fearless and Ben Koenig. So tell us a little bit about it. Oh, you back to front. I knew you looked different. Your camera's the wrong way around, but it doesn't matter. You can still see the proof behind me here. So go on, tell us a little bit about Ben Koenig while we tag and pin in the group.
Right. This is the start of a new series. I'll get into why later on. I'm sure Sam's going to.
I have got it written down.
Direction anyway. It is about a guy who can't feel fear, and we'll get into that later on because it's.
I've got that written down and all.
And for reasons I won't go into because it's sort of not revealed at the start, he has been living off the grid, a bit like Jack Reacher. Although Jack Reacher's not got people hunting him down, he's just going where he wants. But Ben Koenig is sort of doing the same kind of thing. He's just staying off the radar, and he's in a bar one night having a burger and a milkshake. He loves chocolate milkshakes, and he sees his face plastered across the TV, and he's suddenly on the Marshal's 15 most wanted list, which is confusing because he himself is a marshal, or he was, and quite frankly, he probably still is because he never formally left. And he is tracked down. He is arrested fairly early on, or maybe he isn't arrested, and he's given a task that only he can do, and then it all kicks off, and it's a lot of fun, quite violent. Well, not as violent as the original draft was. It was my American took a few of the more extreme bits out, which I'm quite happy to talk about, but you won't find them written down anyway. You might find it on the TV series actually, because I've been chatting to the script writer about what was cut out, but probably not because it is actually quite disgusting. Yeah, so set in America.
I thought this was all right. I didn't think this was too gory, too gruesome. There's some detail in it.
There is. I mean, one of these scenes, I'll just tell you, which was taken out, was he's fighting for his life, and the only way he can win is by leaning forward and sucking the guy's eye out of his head and tearing it out, which I described for about a page and a half, which was a lot of fun. But my UK editor says, "Oh, she just read over that bit. She didn't even read it." And then my US editor says, "Nick, you're not having that."
You'd think it'd be the other way around, wouldn't you?
Well, I purposely didn't swear in this book, in the first draft. And when my American editor got hold of it, and she said, "I need you to take down certain things. Also, you write humour. Why is there no humour in it?" And I'll get into why later, and it's to do with when it was written. So I was able to go back and seed in some extra scenes and some more fearlessness, actually, because there wasn't as much as there was in Now. She felt that I hadn't played my trump card as much as I could, and I was able to put in some humour as well.
I love the fact that, yes, you've made Ben fearless, and we'll talk about why that idea came about, but that it doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't distance him from everything else he's got going on for him. So it's really interesting to see that you've taken his fear, but you've really given him a personality, a demeanour, ideas that help still have that depth of character. You know, he doesn't really lose anything because of it.
No, I mean,
gains a lot.
It's it's a real condition, but it only affects that tiny part of his. He just loses the fear emotion. All his other emotions are completely intact. It's not 100% asset. There's some quite negative things that come with that, and some people find it to their detriment because he doesn't always make the right call because he doesn't understand risk the same way that you or I might, and therefore sometimes he puts others in danger as well, and so it's a huge drawback as well as an asset in certain situations, obviously.
Yeah, and you balance that really well because there's no way you could just have him be literally fearless and racing in without engaging his brain. he wouldn't last 5 minutes. So there must be
yeah,
a lot of work that's
and
gone.
I think because it's a degenerative condition, so he wasn't born that way. So he does have muscle memory to a certain degree of this is something I am supposed to be scared of. Just because I'm not scared of doesn't mean I walk across a burning room kind of thing. That's an uncaged lion. You avoid uncaged lions. You hide, lock yourself in the toilet. Not that I've had any experience of uncaged lions, although I have locked myself in the toilet.
We have got so many hellos already. The screen was just kind of scrolling for a minute.
I have my glasses on or my contacts.
It's okay because I can't see anyone's names.
I can see Joe Singleton.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Joe.
Leslie, Laura. Hello, everyone who has commented. Somebody loves Poentilla, who we'll also talk about. Tilla. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Mike very discreetly mocking my Manc accent, which is perfectly fine by me because I have heard myself. I mean, I've heard it. I hear it. Joe wants to know if you have to approach the books differently when you mainly write about Cumbria and now your new series is set in the States. So do you want to clarify that? Because that's not quite right, is it?
Sorry, say that again.
So it was, do you have to approach the books differently when you mainly write about Cumbria and now your new series is set in the States, but this one came first? So do you want to explain how that came about?
Because that's quite handy because I'm getting this question. And usually it's questions I got asked is there going to be a third Fluke book? Where can I find the Fluke short stories? And is Tilly on the spectrum? They're the top three. I've got part answers now. In fact, I just cut and paste from the previous answer usually. So don't think you
Plus, you get asked about Edgar a lot.
Yeah, not so much.
Not as
usually,
much
usually when I threaten to give him worms if you don't vote for me on certain awards and things. So I was writing the. So the question I get asked most at the minute is why have you stopped writing a successful series? And I mean, without blowing my own trumpet, I mean, I don't have a trumpet, but if I did, I wouldn't blow it. It is a successful series. And every book in the Poe series is growing about between 30 and 40% on the previous one, that type of thing. So I mean, people say, "Are you mad stopping all that to write a new series?" And the reality is, I didn't. I wrote this way before I'd even thought of Poe. The background to this is I had written the first Fluke book, Born in the Burial Gown. And it was with a small publisher.
Do we think I can get these without knocking all my stuff over?
I think you should fall over when you're doing it. Lean back in your chair as far as you can. We won't laugh.
No, but I did knock a bug off. It's a little fluffy UK CBC bug. I know I've got ratty shelves, but they're not bug infested. So
they're the republished versions. The original versions were the very small publisher called Caffeine Nights. And I wrote the first one in 2013. Got a publisher in 2014, and it was published in 2015. Now, after I wrote the first one, I was at work, and I was just looking for something to challenge myself with, without actually getting in the way of writing the next Fluke, which I had already started by then. So I thought, well, because I just met Lee Child at the Daggers in 2013, because Burial Gown was shortlisted for the debut Dagger. So I spent about 20 minutes talking to Lee Child because I was obsessed with the Jack Reacher books, and I still am actually. I mean, I know people can have views on whether the quality has dropped over the last few years, but I still enjoy them, and I still buy them, and I still read them fairly soon after being published. So I thought, well, I'll in my mind I'll set this in the States because really that's what I was predominantly reading at the time, and I'll write it in the first person because I just wanted to see if I could for a start. And the weird thing was I couldn't. I kept on getting the tense wrong, so half of it was in present tense. When I was going back, I was like, "Geez, that's a bit weird." Now, about 3 months ago, I got a notification from Google saying my inbox was full. Now, you have to be pretty bad at admin to get a notification from Google saying your Gmail box is full. So I had to empty a lot of
Not
it.
commenting on mine at this point.
Well, I mean, there's about 16,000 emails still in it. But I did what everyone does. You sort it out by size and you delete the bigger files from a while ago. And I came across a finished version of this from 2014. So that's how long this book has been in existence. Now, during COVID, my editor, during the first lockdown, my editor emailed me and said, "Have you got anything that you have written that I have not read?" Because they had just published the books that you have just held up there. They had acquired the Flute books, would re-edit them, and they had published them in the January, I think, before the curator. And if you ask me about that later, if we've got time, I'll tell you a funny story about what I had to do to Burial Gown, because I really nearly messed that up completely. So she basically wanted everything. She didn't want any surprises. She didn't want some other publisher coming up somewhere and saying, we've got the new Mike Craven book," because the series was starting to sort of take off. So I sent her this quite rough manuscript. I didn't even tell David, my agent, I had, and I didn't really think anything of it. Unbeknownst to me, she sent it off to a thriller editor who used to be a commission editor for either HarperCollins or Headline, one of the H's anyway. And he gave her about 4 pages worth of feedback, which I've now seen actually, basically saying what's quite inaccurate, saying, yeah, it's a good story, it needs a bit of work, etc. And it did, because I wrote it in 2014. By then I'd been working with some really good editors, and I'd understood my own writing style a lot more. So she tagged it on the end of The Botanist and Mercy Chair Contract, which was fine. It was just tagged on. It wasn't a massive advance for that. It was a quarter of what we actually got for the Poe books. And then we didn't really think, and I thought she would do what she did with the Flute books, which is to put them out as a paperback only in January, so it didn't really interfere with the Poe books. But then David's foreign right agent got onto it, and she started to talk to publishing houses in America. Flatiron Books, who are one of the big publishers over there. They publish Sean Cosby and Ellen Page. They just published her Page Boy, I think it's called, is it? The Ellen Page book.
Yeah, I've just been reading some snippets from it. It's one I'm going to read.
Yeah, I read the review in The Guardian. I think they published Matthew Perry's autobiography. So they're a big publisher. And she, when I was talking to my editor there, she's called Christine, she's lovely. She didn't think I would let her buy it, because she said, if I'm going to publish this, it needs, and it's already been edited by my UK editor, but she said it's going to need a lot of work. Not because we had done what we had done was bad, but it was because she wanted it at the start of a series, not at the standalone read it and forget about what I had. So I spent about 4 months rewriting it. So I rewrote Jen's character completely. She was quite just flawless in the first one. Flawless and fearless. That'll be the title too. So she was pretty much without fault, and she was nice and supportive. But now she's quite a bitter. That's where the humor comes from most of the time, actually, from Jen, because she's the one who swears. Ben doesn't really swear. And she wanted more fearlessness.
He makes her swear quite a lot.
Sorry?
He makes her swear quite a lot.
Yeah. He can be quite antagonistic, and they don't like each other, and there's a reason for that. That becomes apparent through the book, and then something's revealed at the end, which then makes it actually even. You really don't know whose side you're going to be on from all this. So that's and then there was a whole thing last summer, which I can't remember if we spoke about one of these things, where Hollywood's got involved and became the subject of a big bidding war in America. And now it's a whole big thing. It's just this like massive juggernaut, which is quite scary actually, because in my heart, I'm still writing the Poe and Tilly series. That's where my brain still tends to bend towards. And B, I don't really. The Poe and Tilly series was on a certain trajectory. I could almost predict where it was going to be. So because sales were predictably going up like that, this I've got no idea what's going to happen. So it's quite an unnerving time, which is fine actually, because you don't want to get there.
I did write down something right near the beginning. Jen Draper Tall and graceful, she was like a ballerina on steroids, a grumpy ballerina who no one liked, but a ballerina all the same. I wrote that down because I howled laughing.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
and
there's a
that's the
lot
thing.
of humour. There's loads of bits that I've made notes of. I could sit here all night just saying lines, but I won't.
Yeah, I mean, I do write it differently. It's written in a different style to the
Yeah,
Poe and Tilly,
completely.
the Poe, and some of my the bloggers who know the Poe and Tilly series intimately saying you do have to keep remind yourself that it is me writing it because it isn't just Poe set in America,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, it really isn't. It's completely different writing style. And they are very different men,
Yes, oh
completely
yeah,
different.
Poe and Koenig.
There's nothing similar.
There is.
Occasionally, I might read something and I think that's Mike's voice coming through there, and
They're
it'll
both
be
like
some
punk.
of the humour.
That's the thing. They're both like punk music because I can't be bothered to think of anything else. Um, yeah, it is what it is. We'll let people make up their own minds whether they like it. And some people are going to hate it because it's not a pub book.
I absolutely love it.
And some people are going to like it and think,
Yeah.
oh, this is a bit different.
I
And there's
think the
some
thing
great.
is, when you write a book like this, there's a certain voice to it for me. I think there's a certain voice you need to have in this kind of American noir, and your love for it, your passion for it, really does come through in the story. You can tell you're somebody who really likes, that kind of American, kind of in the middle of nowhere, small town. You can see your love for it come through. And
Yeah,
I've completely forgotten what my point was, but that when I was reading it, one of the things that came through is there's a certain style of writing that when you hit the nail on the head, it brings all these emotions and all this stuff that you fill in the gaps yourself as a reader. And you have nailed that emotion that I want from one of these books.
that's
The way
good.
that I felt reading it, absolutely nailed it. I do. I genuinely love this book. I can't wait to read the second one. I'm not having is it Poe and Tilly or is it Ben or, who is it? I can't pick a favourite and I'm not going to. I don't want the hate mail.
In an ideal world, and thank you, obviously. In an ideal world, that's exactly what will happen. That people will just be looking forward to
Mm.
the next book I write, rather than wishing it was the new Poe or the new Koenig. Because although the next two are in the bag. So the next Koenig is written. It's not been edited properly. I've still got the American edits to do, which will take me about a couple of weeks, I think. And the next Poe book is written, done. I mean, it's really just waiting to be pushed out. And I'm in the middle of Poe 7, which starts off with Poe hitting somebody with a fish. So yeah.
Does it involve a bit of and then backwards dancing again? I'm assuming you get my reference.
I can't actually tell you why. It'll sort of spoil the ending of the Mercy Chair.
Fair enough. Don't tell me.
He's even in the position to hit somebody with a fish. But so yeah, so I would like to be in that, so I can just write whatever kind of story I want. Sometimes it'll be a Koenig.
Mm.
It would lend itself more to Koenig's world than Poe's, and vice versa, which would be a nice position to be in. I suspect one book will rise above the other when it comes to sales, particularly international sales, and I'll be forced more to write one book than the other. But at the end of the day, I was speaking to David about this. He said, "You're the author. You write what you want to write. I mean, nobody can. So you're the creative person." And ultimately, I think particularly my UK contracts will just be 3 books, and they won't say whether the Koenig or and a lot of this will be driven by what happens in America. Anyway.
Can you tell us anything yet about the TV stuff, movie stuff, anything at all, or do I just need to move on?
I can't remember what I've already said. To be honest,
Not much. I really don't know much.
well, I can tell you what I've been telling everyone. So we were
Okay.
at the Daggers last June, because Dead Ground was shortlisted for the Ian Fleming Steel Dagger, which it won.
Would that be a dagger above your head, Mr. Craven?
Yes, it'll be that one, because obviously I've got 2.
Obviously, got to even it out. We like a bit of symmetry.
And I'm up for the steal again this year.
You
But
are indeed.
obviously we're not going to. I don't have a trumpet, like I said. So we were at the Daggers, and the Daggers, it's like a formal evening. People are in black tie. I'm not, although I do wear a suit because I sort of play the game. Like being back at probation, but never mind. So yeah, the Little Brown buy 2 tables, 1 or 2 tables, depending on how many they've got, because they invite your editor, your agent, and I bring Joe. So the table has about 10 on it. And my publicist always goes as well. So I was sitting beside my publicist and my wife, and my editor was on my wife's right-hand side. I am saying this for a reason. I'm not just going. I'm not telling you about wedding plans, wedding seating plans. Or anything.
No, I know you've got a point. If you're saying something, there's a reason for it. I know.
So anyway, so those speeches. Nellie Griffiths was like the after dinner speaker, and then it was getting to the Daggers, and they start with the I don't want to say smaller daggers, but they start with like the Oscars, I suppose. They start with, then eventually they get to the Diamond Dagger, which is the sort of lifetime achievement thing. In between one of the speeches, David, who was like 3 seats away from me, my agent, turned around and he said, when do you think the American copy edits will be done on Fearless? It was called Fearless, and it wasn't called Fearless initially, but it got changed quite near the end. And I said, I don't know, about 10 days maybe. End of next week at a push, and this was a Tuesday night, I think, possibly a Thursday night. And I said, why? And he said, we've had 23 production companies have asked to see it.
Wow.
He just turned around and started talking to the person next to him. And so I thought, well, I'll grab him at the end of the night. But then Dead Ground won, and we were all celebrating, and things got a bit messy. And I forgot. I remember saying to Joanne on the train home the next day, I said, do you remember David saying anything about 23? He said, yeah, that was it. What did he say? But I said, well, I didn't speak to him, did you? And so I cracked on with the edits, and I sent it to him on the Friday, like I said, the Friday of the following week. He sent it to his TV right agents, the TV agents that we work with. She sent it out on the Monday, and by that Friday, there'd been like 30-something expressions of interest. It was, and she said, she's the woman who dealt with Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club. She sold it to Steven Spielberg. And she said, I've never seen anything like this. And I really don't know why. I don't even know how they even knew about it in the first place. And then we were whittling it down, and people were bidding, and then they'll come back with questions and stuff like that. Then eventually she said, right, I think we, in a rough idea, we know what we want. We will set, and it was the Thursday night of Harrogate. We'll just happened to be Harrogate. That would mean, so we were in Harrogate. Thursday night, midnight, to have your final bids in, and after that, we're not taking any more bids. But obviously, Thursday midnight is 8 o'clock in the morning in the UK. So we were, and it was my mother-in-law's birthday. So and she'd come up for Harrogate because she comes to Harrogate every now and then. So we were sort of having a little breakfast thing before we actually headed off into the beer tent, and possibly some panels. I don't know, but definitely the beer tent. At 8 in the morning. So we're sitting there as Emily started to send the actual finished offers through, and there was 9 firm offers in the end. And David was in his hotel room texting me, and I was like singing "Happy Birthday," Jesus. And so we did, and we had 9 offers. We whittled it down straight away. We took 3 off the table immediately, and then we met with 6. In the end, it was 7 because Channing Tatum insisted on meeting with us, which was surreal. And it came down, I mean, and then it was one of those impossible things when David said, ultimately, it's up to you. Who do you want to go with? And I thought, I'm completely not qualified to talk about this. And each offer was different. It was different money. It was different terms. Some of it was a film. Some of it was a series. Some of it was streaming. Some of it was just traditional telly kind of stuff.
So a lot to consider then.
Yeah. All the big streamers bar Amazon were in, because Amazon had Reach, and I suspect that's what the people just saw how well Reach was done and thought this is pretty close actually. So let's try and get this. And then Emily said, "Do you know who you want?" And I said, "Not really. It's between these 2, I think." We'd had really good meetings with them. And she said, well, how about I said, what do you think? She said, well, I think this one is the most creatively interesting, but the other one are offering a bit more money. How about we go to the one that you want, or we want, and say, if you can match all the best bits of every contract, we'll take it off the table. And she went back, and within about 20 minutes, she come back and said, yeah, absolutely. So that's who we went with. And it's now, I mean, because of the writer's strike, it's actually on pause at the minute. It's classed as an act of God. So they've got an 18-month option, but the 18-month, the clock isn't ticking down on that. We've got a writer, a very, very good writer. I've met with him for a couple of hours, really cool bloke. He's done some really special stuff, some stuff I've actually loved even before I knew what his name was, some like films, a really good TV series, very recent that I watched just last year. Very violent, but very well made. So that's where we are with that now. So, and on the back of that, the Poe and Tilly series got bought as well by a UK company. And I've got a lot of creative. It's been sold before, I know, but I've got a lot of creative control this time. I'm an executive producer. If I want to, I can write one of the episodes, not the first or second, and not the last. But if I want, which I probably won't because I'm bone idle. But if I do want,
I knew you were going to say that.
so that's ploughing ahead now as well. And I think when Studio Lambert bought it, I always thought, well, it probably won't get made. It actually got closer than anyone was expecting. I think these have a very good chance of getting made. The American one certainly, because they've already spent a lot of money on it.
Do you have any issues with if somebody else is writing it? Do you want it to remain close to your original idea, or are you happy for it to deviate and to see somebody else's vision with it?
The company who bought it, actually, I saw in America, one of the big studios goes into partnership with a production company. So the production company make it,
right,
but the studio buy it for them to make. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So the production company who hired the writer wanted to adapt Fearless. They wanted the character, but they wanted to adapt the story as well. Some of the others didn't. Some of the others just wanted to make a flat-out film about a fearless guy, which would have been fine. I would have preferred it just to stay, just because I know how it would. If the Jack Reacher book, when that was adapted to Amazon, I would have been annoyed if they just did their own thing. When you've got such a rich source material, on call. So they are doing Fearless as the story as well. They're going to have to change certain bits because it's first person. You're only ever in Ben's head, and obviously that wouldn't work on TV. You need to be off screen with him, so he's having to do backstories and things for some of the characters that would just throw away characters for me. And with the Poe series, they're starting with the Botanist, which is pretty good. But they are going to have Poe and Tilly meeting for the first time as they did in the puppet show. So there'll be a bit of like wangling going on there. But it'll work as well.
So moving things around but not changing them.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and I'm an executive producer on both, so I've got a voice, and I'm involved in casting on both and things like that. But as you do with you don't have the final say. The studio still gets to decide, as they do with everything. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, it's the studio because they're the ones paying for it, and they know what sells on TV. I mean, sometimes they get it wrong, but it's still their money at the end of the day.
Does it feel surreal having that conversation?
It did last summer. It was to the point I felt lunch drunk. Actually, because we had this meeting after, and Emily said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I'm a bit nonplussed." And I was the only person in the room on that Zoom meeting who actually knew what nonplussed meant, which was like a bit, I can't believe it's happening. They were like a bit like underwhelmed. I thought well, that's actually not what I meant at all. Get a dictionary. And because like Joanne was saying, you're being remarkably cool about this. And I said, well, what else are you supposed to? I mean, it was just such a weird few days. And then because the Zoom meetings are all LA time, so all my like the creative meetings when they were like studio heads and like Emily said, you won't know this guy, but this guy's huge. He actually owns the studio. He's like this president of the studio. He's insisting on being on the call. So he's opening the pitch and things. And I'm just sitting there, I've got no idea what he's talking about most of the time. And then when he's trying to ask like sensible question, like, who's the showrunner going to be? And I was like, why do you care who goes to get the cup of tea and your dry cleaning and stuff like that? I mean, I just didn't have a clue. So they were asking, what questions do you want to ask, Mike? And I thought, well, I don't have any. So I'll just ask who you're thinking of casting, or what thoughts have you had about casting that time? And then I think, oh, well, we're thinking Ryan Gosling for Ben, and Rebecca Ferguson for Jen, and or maybe Florence Pugh, and all these like just massive authors. And we're having these discussions now. And now that we're actually in the bones of it, I get text messages from the guys at the studio, and they're dead funny anyway. And they say, "Can you hop on a call?" Billy Bob, just say he's out for lunch at the minute. Be back about 3. Can you hop on this call? We're going to be talking about writers and things like that. And I think at 3 o'clock, and 8 hours. So right, that's 11 o'clock. We're going to start this phone call. And we'll say, all right, what's the weather like? Oh, it's dark. It's nighttime. I want to go to bed. So yeah, it's all very, very weird. But I mean, that was last year, and I've moved on, and I've sort of my feet are back on the ground. I went really off the ground, to be honest. And I remember that I'm a writer, not a movie director. I don't have a Hollywood star yet. All that type of stuff.
No chair with your name on.
Got 2 daggers, but I don't have a Hollywood star. I mean, if honestly, because my contract says to go, I have to be on set when required. It's part of the executive producer bit. I'm going to steal so much stuff. It's unbelievable. You've got a massive big sack of
like the Grinch who stole Christmas.
And clapperboard things. I'll have about 7 of them in my bag. I'll auction them off to the UK Cram Book Club when I get home.
Nice. You told me to remind you burial gown mess up.
Yes. I might have mentioned this before on various things if I haven't. So, for those of you who have read the first version of Burial Gown, but haven't read the second, there is a change. I assumed that nobody would ever read Burial Gown because it was with a small publisher. They weren't allowed to publish it anymore for various reasons, and so there was only maybe 250 copies in production. So I thought, well, because I was coming towards the end of the curator, then I needed a sort of a little hook kind of thing, or a little twist. And I thought, I'm just going to steal the one I used in Burial Gown. No one's going to know. Right? And then Little Brown bought it and published it about 4 months before the curator was due out. So in a mad panic, when we realized I had to completely rewrite parts of Burial Gown because I couldn't change the curator. And it involved a left-handed guitar, and the way the strings are put on a left-handed guitar instead of the wacky thing that happens in the curator. And I needed to know which were on the top and which were on the bottom. The thicker strings on the top or on the bottom. Didn't have a clue, so I did what everyone does. I looked on Wikipedia. Thought, all right, well, that must be right. It's on Wikipedia. It was on WikiHow. You know that thing when you got a load of like daft diagrams on how to do very basic things. And then it wasn't when it was getting narrated. It was about 6 hours before it was due to go to print. The narrator called me and said, "You do realize you got the guitar strings upside down. You got them completely the wrong way around," which would have negated the entire book. So we had about 6 hours. By the time I checked and I triple checked, then I did what I should have done in the first place, which was to ask some of my friends to actually play the guitar. And they said, "No, you're wrong, you dunce. Why didn't you just ask me in the first place?" So we changed it in the end. But that was it was just one of those things. I thought, I'll never get caught doing this. And then I think it was Joanne says, "You've used the same ending of both books. Both, but people are going to be reading that, then going directly onto that." So yeah.
We have got loads and loads and loads of questions. Laura wants to know, we'll be looking out for you as a cameo. What do you think? You and Joanne going to have a walk-on part in the film?
Yeah, absolutely. Try and stop me.
I thought that'd be a short answer. You're going to have to not pull faces, though.
No.
Can you just stand nicely? Can you sit nicely?
Yeah,
Joanne's looking gorgeous at the front of this photo that you shared, and you're just pull the face in the background.
I can't remember. I pull a face in every photograph.
I know, ridiculous.
Have you seen that
Not
episode?
funny.
Did you ever watch The Detectives with Jasper Carrot and Robert Powell? Do you remember that one where they were advisors on a TV series,
No.
and they asked to be extras, and it was a shot in a casino. So
Oh,
the two actors are sitting at the bar having a chat, and in the background, Jasper Carrot is playing roulette. But obviously, you can't instantly. He just jumps up because he's won. That'd be like me. I won't be helping myself. I'll be waving. Oh.
Just as long as somebody keeps pouring something nice for Joanne while she's watching you with her head in her hands.
The thing is, for the UK premiere of the Post series, it's in my contract. It's me plus one. It's not just me in the US. So,
Just you in the US.
and I've seen these red carpet events because with the company that I'm with, and they're massive, and it's just like premiere events at Leicester Square, and there's cameras and red carpets and people doing that in front of boards and things. So I'll be there, and Joanne will be on the other side of the rope, flicking the V's.
Somebody said, ask Mike if he's looking forward to the Maiden gig next week.
Yes.
I apologise that I don't know who it is. It's just got Facebook user, and I can't see it on actual Facebook. I'm sick of clicking across. It's not working.
I am, very looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it anyway, but we were on holiday on the first night of the new tour, and usually the set list gets leaked, but because they'd said they were going to play a certain album, everyone was focused on this one song called Alexandra the Great, which has sort of become this like mythical thing because they've never played it live. But it was on this album that they were going to focus on, so everyone was waiting to see if they're going to play it. And there's all sorts of rumors going on. They're not going to play it. They are going to play it. But they were releasing the set list live. So after they played a song, I think it was in Eastern Europe somewhere. I can't remember. The first song would come up, and then we were on holiday, and so I had my phone on the table. And every time it flashed up, I was like, the eighth song, and I think it was the eighth song. Yes, they're playing Alexander the Great. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to it.
That was me talking. Thank you, Joe.
It's the Northern launch. It's the Carlisle launch the day after, which is getting a bit ridiculous now. I mean, I legitimately thought I wasn't just being me trying to be cool, that we should just have it in the bookshop. I thought it's not a book. I always get a lot of people to the Poe and Taylor launches. There's 300 hats at the botanist. But I thought this one, it's not going to have a set. It's set in America. So I said, let's just have it in the bookshop. But I was persuaded to have it in this place called the Tithe Barn, which is like a mid-sized venue, holds about 90, I think. Sold out in less than a week. So we had to move it to the old fire station, which is the only place bigger than that is the actual Sand Centre, which is where like all the big bands play when they come up. It's like you've got like 5,000 people in there. So yeah, and it's sold out. It's been sold out for months as a waiting list, and every time that someone hands the ticket back for whatever reason, then the waiting list goes to the next one and it's full. So it's being filmed. ITV are there filming it. I've got my agent's coming up for the first time. My publicist is coming up. My marketing manager's coming up. Ed James is interviewing me, and he's an incredibly funny guy. Yeah. And he's a good fit actually for Carlisle because his books are set around that area anyway. So hopefully he'll sell some books as well. And we'll have a laugh anyway because we always do when we're together. But we weird talking to Ed sober actually because I don't think I've ever done that.
First time for everything, Mike.
Yeah. I don't even know why did we come to that. I can't remember. Anyway,
we've completely lost.
Oh yeah, I said just about it was the Iron Maiden question, that wasn't it?
It was Lee's Iron Maiden question. So Lee Choppin asked the Maiden question, said Joe. So thank you. One of the things I made a note of was it's written in 5 parts, and I thought that was really clever because not just structurally, as a reader, you kind of do that thing of I'm just going to read one more chapter. No, I'm just going to read to the end of this part, and then I'll put it down for a minute while they're going, feed the kids and do. I'll just read the first chapter of the next part, and I didn't move. I didn't move for hours and hours.
An early version of it, because I mean, you've got that. I'm see the one behind you. That's like the heat bound. That was
It's the heat
I mean,
bound.
we printed it out because it was that couple of crime last year, wasn't it? And I wanted.
Yeah.
I knew that Michael Robotham and Sean Cosby were going to be there, and I wanted to get them copies, physical copies. And I got a lovely quote of Sean, which was I think it's on the front. It's on the front of it's on the front of the UK one, and it's on the back of the American one. But I mean, but the US one's lovely, and so's the UK one. They both went the same colour scheme.
So, what was the quote that Sean Cosby gave you? Because I know Chris Whitaker said "badass and brilliant," and I was going to weave that into a joke about. But that's enough about you. Let's hear about Ben Koenig.
Very kind to give me a very, very early quote. I can't remember why I wouldn't. My American editor wanted a very early quote to put on the galleys, as they call them. So that's what you send out to get the quotes. So Chris saw a very early draft of it. Sean's quote was, "If you haven't read any M.W. Craven yet, fix that immediately." Peter Robinson, he had an early copy of this. It's possible it was the last book he read before he died, which is well, it's a worrying thought, actually. I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping that you read something more literary and appropriate. So this tosh, because I mean, it's a lot of fun, but I mean, it's not going to win the Booker Prize. We've got Dave Baldacci quote and Steve Craven, a few others. Yeah, it's done all right review wise, and press wise, it's had more reviews than any other book so far, including the quote in the literary review, which I've never been reviewed because it's a crime book and they don't do that kind of thing. But I went down to London actually for a press breakfast at Dissoom in King's Cross. And for those of you who don't know Dissoom, it's like a street food Indian place, but they do lovely breakfast. You can get bacon naan rolls and absolutely gorgeous. So there was me and a load of Mike Stotter from Shots Mag was there, and but then it was everyone from the press and things like that, which was a lot of fun. But it was just like me going out to London for breakfast, which I live in Cumbria. I mean, so going down.
Away.
It is. I mean, which it literally means you got to go the night before. Of course, I mean, there's no way I can get to London for 9 o'clock. Even when I had to in probation, the earliest you get there was about 9:30.
We've got 15 minutes, so I'm going to try and look at some of the questions. Joe's saying, great that you have so much involvement, and we look forward to hearing some behind-the-scenes stories next time. Have you got any idea what the behind-the-scenes is going to be like? Have you been onto a set yet?
I haven't. No, I've got no idea what it'll be like. I assume everyone will be treating me like royalty. No, I should
imagine so.
It's not as glamorous as. I mean, I do. Just from listening to interviews with actors, it tends to be a lot of waiting around for them between while they get takes set up and things. That's why they all have like cabins and trailers and stuff like that. So no, I don't know. But well, I mean, I'll be basically live streaming when I'm out there. I'll be so excited.
I should hope so. We want to see all of it. The only thing I thought was really like a bit mad when I found out about it was that they often hire people who they don't necessarily have to have the same face as the actor or actress, but a similar kind of height and build, so that they can put them in the lights and set the shot up rather than having the actor kind of, if they're a big name. I thought all these little details, these things that you just don't think of, never would have occurred to me that along with a stunt double, you might have a lighting double. I mean, that's some attention to detail.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, because I mean that you pay your talent, as they're called, a lot of money, and you don't really want to be doing it just to make them to see stand there and see where the shadow lands. When anyone could do it. I mean, I could do it for Tom Cruise. I just have to get on my knees.
I could do it for Tom Cruise. I'd just tie my hair up. We've got I can't ask you who does Poe hit with a fish. I'm not asking that. I'll hit you with a fish if there's no more Poe.
Another author called Anna Anwar. Because it's not really I just needed someone to hit with a fish, and I thought I'm gonna hit my mate. I haven't told him that yet. I don't think he's watching, so he won't know.
He might know. Oh, Graham Bartlett made a comment before. He said something to the effect of,
this is about
AstroTurf, and then back away slowly, something like that. So go on.
We were at my agent's summer party last Thursday. So I was in London the back end of last week. I was signing Goldsborough books because they've bought 500, and I had a meeting with a journalist who was doing a feature on me for the. I won't tell you who, just in case I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
And so the DHA Christmas summer party was down there. I've never been before because it's a 2-hour thing, so I wouldn't go down for that. But Graham Bartlett was there, and a few others, Rob Scragg and Chris McDonald, and some pretty cool Stu Turton and Tom Hindle and a load of other. It was packed.
Blooming good group by the sound of it. Sounds like
it was a good laugh. It was a good laugh. I don't know how it came out. I was talking to Graham was in our group, and he just happened to mention that he has his back garden is AstroTurf instead of a lawn. And he didn't think there was anything wrong with that. And I burst out laughing and I mocked him all night. But the thing was, every time he went to someone to try and get an ally, everyone was just, what you talk about? How could you like that? He's even got weeds coming up through his AstroTurf now. And he washes it twice a week.
People do jet wash their AstroTurf. This is not me. I barely have a lawn. It's been that dry in Manchester lately. It's kind of mainly brown at this point. It's had a good water now, hasn't it? But
yeah, I mean I remember summer. I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago when I only had to mow the lawn once. Then again, Graham
all round for you.
Graham doesn't have to mow his lawn because it's AstroTurf. Sorry,
yeah, I didn't know that, but I will be having a conversation about that. That's funny.
And he really should be absolutely ashamed of himself. But he wasn't. He wasn't. He was standing proud. He really was nailing his colours to the AstroTurf mast.
Somebody said he can vacuum AstroTurf. I mean, bloody hell, there's a limit.
He brushes it, then he gets his vacuum out. I thought, well, how's that any quicker than just run the mower over it?
I need to process this information.
I was calling them bee killer by the end of the night.
Yeah, my lawn does actually have nice little purple flowers in that the bees love, which is a really good reason not to mow it. A really good excuse. We like the bees. Keep your pets off the AstroTurf, not good for dogs. Okay, Joe, thank you for that. I do know people who've got it because they've got dogs, but we'll move on completely. The blue grapevine, is that a real thing? Or did you make that up?
I made that up. I mean, it's true.
Genius.
I don't know if it has a name. I mean, Graham actually might know a little bit more than this. The blue grapevine, Graham, is basically just the unofficial intelligence of the police when mates talk, ex-colleagues talk to ex-colleagues, and it's sort of because in the book, I mean, this might not even be true. I said once they retire, they take their pension, then just disappear, and they disappear to where they're not working. So therefore, you have this massive network of ex-cops all around the country, all over the world, really, which you can then call on and they'll know someone who knows someone who knows someone, that kind of. So that just made. I assume it makes sense, even if it isn't true. It sounds
I thought it was a great line, and I did wonder whether it was a real thing. I mean, I suppose it is, but whether what you've named it is what it's called or not, I just thought that was really clever. Another one was ShotSpotter. Now that is real, isn't it?
That is real, yeah. And that's a thing in DC. I think other major cities have got it now. I think New York certainly has. And it's basically like an echolocation thing, like dolphins and bats have. So when a shot is fired, the cops can instantly detect where it was actually fired from. which in certain parts of Washington is a useful law enforcement tool, I imagine. Well, I don't imagine it is, because some parts of Washington are very, very deprived.
Last one of those I'm going to ask you. Purple vision.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's something I sort of picked up from my army days. I knew a little bit about that anyway. I wasn't really sure what it's called, and I didn't know how it worked. A lot of that stuff was taken out, actually. It was a far longer scene that was cut off the paste. And there's some stuff I had to take out. I didn't have to. I was asked if I would consider taking out because I had said it was a Native American Indian thing, but apparently it's more appropriate in the States now to actually name the tribe rather than name them as a collective, which I thought, well, that seems very, very reasonable. Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out which tribe had sort of invented. It's a thing where when you can't do it because I want to. So when you're getting your night vision, you put your arms out wide like that, and then you bring them in until you can see your fingers in the periphery. Then you gradually take them out again, and then gradually your eyes will adapt so you can see your fingers all the way back. And it's about speeding up your night vision. And your purple vision is a different part of your eye that works at night and doesn't work during the day. And you have to build it up over about 30 minutes, I think.
If you had to, if you can even do this, I'm not asking you to choose between Benpo and Tiller as people, Tiller. But do you think any one of them has changed you more as a writer and made you learn more than the other two? Not a favourite character, because I don't think that's a fair question.
I think I'd have to say the Poe series because I've been writing that for so long now. I mean, that with the break, apart from the break for writing, for editing, Fearless, I wrote 6 novels on the trot, 9 short stories and a novella, without writing anything else. And that's what I'm thinking about. I'm quite glad it actually, because it sort of shaped me. And I found what I like to write, and therefore, if I like writing something, it sort of comes through. And that was useful when it came to writing Conan, because I was able to sort of, although it's not the same kind of writing, I have fashioned it into a way where I enjoy writing it as well. Yeah. The second one is written in the third person, and I think I'll probably go back to the first person because I found that more enjoyable than second person. I found it was more intimate than. The second one had to be third person because it's much bigger in scale and there's far more moving parts, and there's parts where Ben doesn't know about, but you need the reader to know about. So it wouldn't really work as a first person. Whereas, like you do with the Poe books, actually, you only ever really see things, apart from maybe the first chapter, you only ever see things through Poe's eyes. So you're discovering the things as Poe discovers them, which then means that you can try and work it out ahead of Poe, and a lot of people do. They get there before Poe, and good on them, I say. I bet you don't get the mercy chair though.
I'm intrigued about this one. So when
it's very dark, mercy chair.
It's 2024, isn't it?
At the minute, yeah. But that publication date really does depend on what happens with Fearless in the States. Really, if it explodes, then they might look at changing it. Don't know. I mean, I really don't know. That's not me being coy. They don't know yet either. My UK publisher doesn't know.
You had to make some changes, didn't you, to Fearless, because it was originally going to be a standalone. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but how much roughly of the book would you say? Was it a lot that had to be changed to make it work as a series?
Well, I wanted another basher anyway, because last time I'd really got into it was in 2014, so I was quite uncomfortable about it going out anyway.
So you wanted to go over it?
Absolutely, I did.
Yeah.
I changed his voice a lot because I was a different writer. I mean, I was sort of 7 years, 2014, 8 years into my into writing, so I was a different writer anyway. So, like I said, Jen's character, she in this version, she is a lot darker. In fact, she wasn't dark at all. She was a bit like Tilly with skills wise. I mean, she had her own private intelligence company, and blah 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 blah. But that's all I said. In this version, I explained why she had that and why she was as why her and Ben hate each other. In the original book, they were very good friends, but they hate each other now. They're antagonistic towards each other. And then
they hate each other, but they do really trust each other.
Oh yeah, they trust each other, and they respect each other's skills to a certain degree. But she blames him for a lot of stuff. He blames her for a lot of stuff. She thinks he's reckless, which he is. He also stole her Corvette, which he did, because he wanted to drive a Corvette. So there's a lot of silliness in there as well. But that's the biggest change. There's some stuff with there's a cop, an ex-cop that Ben, which is the blue grapevine that you're talking about, who Ben teams up with later on. So there's a lot of changes to that. So when something happens later on, it's more of an emotional punch. So these were changes that my American editor, who's a very experienced editor, and works with some pretty big authors anyway. So I was. And also, she was for the American market. And there's some little things which I didn't know. I mean, she says, you need to change what Ben's having for breakfast. And I was like, why? I was like, pancakes and bacon. Isn't that what you guys eat over there? She says, we do, but he's also having mushrooms. And she goes, that's gross. Why would you eat mushrooms for breakfast, you weirdos, you English weirdos?
I eat mushrooms with all meals. Yeah, mushrooms and onions with everything.
Those are lovely, yeah. So yeah, just little things like that which I didn't know. That also I got some stuff wrong in Texas when I'd said it would take about 4 hours to get from A to B, when really it would take like 2.5 days. Because I think Texas is actually bigger than. I think Texas is similar in size to Europe. I think. I mean, it's a massive country. I probably massively got that wrong as well. But yeah, I
can't remember, but there is somebody in my life who tells me a lot. You know that this is the same size as this. If you put this on this, and I never remember where they are.
I know that I had massively underestimated how long it would take to drive from A to B. Certainly, it couldn't be done in. I think I said 2 hours or something like that, which is basically me just going to Manchester and going Tele. That's no, even in places like Texas, where there's no traffic lights, it's just one big straight road and nothing to see, and you have to stop at every garage.
Long that road out of Cornwall.
Yeah,
that is a road and a half, and that's nothing compared to the American roads. We are 1 minute to 8, so
flown again.
That's really gone fast. I've barely looked at my notes. I've hardly got through. There's questions, but we've managed to get through quite a bit. Give us a reminder of Fearless. Did you know that it's also the name of one of Taylor Swift's albums, which I found out while I was Googling something?
Yeah, massive Taylor who? Taylor Swift. I've heard of her, actually. She's doing quite well, isn't she? Yeah, Fearless, out in America, July 11th, out in England, next Thursday. Just buy it. You'll enjoy it.
You absolutely will enjoy it.
Pre-orders about 6 times more than the botanist, so I mean, some people are getting excited about it. And then I'll just hide for a few months until people say, "Where's Poe and Tilly?"
And then you will be back. Thank you so much. Quickly tell us any dates that you've got that aren't sold out anywhere. Are you going to be at any events this year?
Huddersfield. I don't think that's sold out yet because it hasn't really been announced. In Glasgow, I think there's still some tickets left for Glasgow. Most of the local ones are sold out. Yeah, they're on my website, and I'll be posting them on Facebook at some point when I've got.
If you want to drop them, any remaining tickets,
I will. I've got an asset somewhere which I'll drop. Very kind of you.
Thank you to everyone watching. Somebody said you hide. I can't see who the comments are. Some of this I feel like it would be even better if I knew who was saying it. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much to you for coming back a week late after power cuts and internet outages and rain and thunder like I've never seen.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next year for the next one.
Well, and I'll see you anyway, won't I? I'll see you at Capital Crime.
You absolutely will see me at Capital Crime, yeah. See you there in August.
Okay. Bye, everyone.